But yesterday we ended on chapter 11. We finished it off, respiration and gas exchange. Today we're going to start off with an important chapter, chapter 12, coordination and response. Alright, it will take some classes to finish off. It's a long chapter. Alright, so let's start our discussion. Chapter 12, coordination and response. Coordination and response. Okay. So changes in an organism's environment are called stimulus. Okay. Whatever you are getting as as a change in your surroundings. Okay. And these stimuli are sensed by your specialized cells that are called receptors. Right? Okay. So changes in the environment are called stimulus. And they are detected by specialized cells called receptors. Specialized cells called receptors. For example, if light is entering your eyes become the receptors because they're receiving the stimulus. Okay, bright light is entering your eye. All right, and organisms respond using effectors. Effectors are usually muscles or glands. Response occurs through effectors. Alhamdulillah. Effectors are usually muscles or glands. It depends. Okay, stimulus, receptor, effector, very important. All right. And after that, the way in which your receptors detect stimuli and then pass information to effectors is called, all of this is called coordination. All of this, because it's coordinated, right? But the fastest way of sending information is through nerves. Obviously, nervous communication is a lot faster than your chemical communication. Now, nerves basically have some smaller units as well. Like the entire nerves are made up of some small units that are called neurons. Okay, now if you look at a typical neuron, for example, let's look at a motor neuron. So if I talk about neurons, so human nervous system is made up of neurons, you know that. Okay, let's see what a motor neuron looks like. This is what a motor neuron looks like. Alright, this is your cell body. These are dendrites. Okay, that pick up electrical signals from the neurons lying uh, nearby. Alright, and these signals are called nerve impulses, which is the fastest way of communication. This is your axonal end. You have two parts, let's say axon and dendrites. Okay, axon. This is axonal end. Always remember, axon carry impulses away from cell body. Okay, so A for axon, A for away, and dendrites carry towards the cell body. So towards has a D, and dendrites also have D. So remember it that way. Axons carries nerve impulses away from the cell body. All right, and your dendrites carry towards the cell body. Okay, again, simple like a simple organelle. You have cytoplasm, nucleus, ribosome, mitochondria, cell membrane. Uh, these are basically myelin sheath. It's basically for insulation purposes, because it's not like that your neurons are very far apart, right? They are very close together. So, and since nerve impulses is in the form of current, not that type of current, like not that of high voltage, but obviously it is electrical form, right? So they can be short circuit in the body as well if there is some mixing some point or the other. Okay, like you insulate your wires at the home in your homes as well, right? There's an insulating rubber or plastic on top of your plastic, basically on top of your wires, right? And similarly to that, this myelin sheath is also acting as an insulation. And why are these gaps in your myelin sheath? These gaps are firstly called as your node of Ranvier. Okay, node of Ranvier, and these basically these are like gaps between myelin sheath. So your electron basically jumps from one node of Ranvier to another. It moves through like skip movement, like how you skip jump, skip count, whatever, right? And why is this there? So this basically speeds up the conduction impulses. Okay, but once you're walking, and if you're skipping, like jumping, leaping one tile and jumping, right, you will obviously reach faster, right? This is why there are gaps in between your myelin sheath, and those are called noda and wire. And electron basically jumps through them, and that ensures faster conduction of impulses. Is the basic structure of a neuron clear? I mean, apart from the placement of cell body and all, everything is going to be the same. Okay, we're going to look at sensory neuron later on, inshallah, and delay neuron as well. I guess
Miss, the mode of Renvar is the gaps, or
yes.
is it the cell body itself?
No, these are this is the gap between the myelin sheath. This gap,
Oh, okay.
is the node of an wire. Okay, this gap between the myelin sheath, this gap. Okay, and electron
Okay.
travels in the jumping manner. All right, everyone's clear?
What is an axon?
Axon is part of a neuron that carries impulses away from cell body, and dendrites carry it towards the cell body. Axons carried away from cell body. A for axon, A for away. Towards has a D. Dendrite also has a D. So remember that way. Okay. Dendrites carry impulses, nerve impulses towards the cell body. Axons carried away from the cell body. It's a part of a neuron. Clear? Sat?
Clear.
Umar, where were you yesterday? Alright, I hope everyone's clear. Rest of you, who's left? Emma, any questions? All clear?
No, miss.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Right, so dendrites pick up electrical signals, like I just told you. Yes, Umar, where were you yesterday? Dendrites pick up electrical signals. Who else wasn't there yesterday? Abdul Basit, yes. He isn't here today as well. Okay. Dendrites pick up electrical signals from other neurons. Other neurons nearby, and they are called nerve impulses. Right, obviously, and then it will be transferred from one neuron to another neuron. Okay, it's not like there's an end after this. Okay, it always transfers from one neuron to another neuron. Okay, now if I talk about your central nervous system, so all mammals have a central nervous system and a peripheral nervous system, CNS and PNS. Right, so all mammals have a central nervous system, CNS, and peripheral nervous system. CNS and PNS. Okay, CNS is made up of neurons and its role is to coordinate the electrical impulses traveling through the nervous system. Okay, PNS is your nerves that spread out, and each nerve contains hundreds of neurons. CNS contains your includes your brain and spinal cord, and your PNS contains the nerves and impulse receptors. Now, if I talk about your reflex arc, reflex arc is the pathway of reflex action. And then you will ask, what is reflex action? Right? So, pathway of reflex action. Coming to the point that what is reflex action? You might have heard about reflex action, that it's the automatic response of the body to your stimuli, right? For example, let's say, have you heard of knee jerk reflex? Anyone? Knee jerk reflex. Has anyone heard of it? No? Yes or no? Knee jerk reflex.
I have not heard of it.
Okay. So knee jerk reflexes, have you ever seen doctors, they tap the knees with a hammer? Okay, so there's a certain place where you tap and then your leg moves on its own. That is called a reflex. Okay. For example, if sometimes a very fast ball is coming towards you and then you catch it all of a sudden and you're like, oh, I wasn't even ready. I don't know how did I catch it. That is a reflex action. For example, if someone is throwing something towards you and then your brain, automatically raises the hands to catch it. Okay. Even if you were not mentally prepared. It is something hot is falling, you would automatically move back. Ouch. Right? You would automatically move back. Is this clear? So these are reflex actions. You don't consciously think about it, but these happens because your body responds to them automatically. Is this clear?
Clear.
Yeah.
Automatic response of body to stimuli. So there is a pathway for it, okay, that we call as your reflex arc. There's a pathway of reflex action. So what happens that firstly you have a stimulus. Stimulus is what? Change in surroundings. Any change in external surroundings. Internal surroundings also, they also send stimulus, but that is again not in our control. Okay, that happens automatically. Receptors include receptors basically receive stimulus. Okay, R for receptors, R for receiving stimulus, and there are all type of receptors. You have touch, pain, temperature, light, taste, all type of receptors. Then they send signals to sensory neurons. Sensory neurons receive impulse from receptors. They then give it to relay neuron or interneuron. You know, just like relay races you have in your sports day. Okay, these basically transmit the impulse from sensory to motor neuron. Motor is the one that performs the action. Okay, it is also called as your effector. I told you it's either muscle or gland. Because in this case, it's a muscle, right? So it provides acute response to effectors. Okay, that is a muscles or glands. Is this clear? Is this pathway clear? First stimulus is there. Receptors will receive the stimulus. They will pass it to sensory neuron. Sensory neuron will pass it to relay neuron, and then from relay neuron to motor neuron. Let me copy a diagram of sensory and sensory neurons so that I can show it to you, and relay as well, to how this impulse passes.
Is the effector the muscle or gland itself?
Yes, effector is the muscle or gland.
Okay,
The
and
organ that it's the organ that performs the action. It's the thing that performs the action. Okay, so it's either the muscle. For example, if you want to move away, your muscle will contract and you will move away. And for example, if your blood glucose level has rose because you had a meal, your glands will produce insulin to lower it down. Right. So the ones performing action are muscle or glands. Yes. Go ahead.
okay.
You're asking something else as well.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that the receptor, is it a neuron or is it a cell or something?
Receptors are basically, they are cells. They are, all type of receptors. They're made up of cells. Right? Neuron is when neuron will include the word neuron in it. Okay, receptor is just cells. Okay, there are specific cells that are sensitive to pain. There are specific cells that are sensitive to pressure, temperature, taste. Okay, the group of cells. They're specialized cells, just like that. Okay,
Okay.
receptors will send impulses to sensory neuron, sensory to relay. Relay will basically just relay it. Like relay races. You pass the baton from one person to another. So relay neuron will transfer the impulses from sensory to motor neuron. Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay, now this is what a sensory neuron looks like. Same things, just the position of cell body has changed. Now, for example, receptor send the impulse from this, your axon will receive it. Okay, like I said, axon carries impulse away from the cell body, and dendrites receive impulses and carry them towards the cell body. All right. Now look at them. All right. Dendrites receive impulses and carry them towards the cell body. Right, so this is your receptor. Let's say receptor is here. Dendrite is now receiving it and sending it towards. All right, and then this is a cell body nucleus and an axon at the end, and then this will form a synapse between with your relay neuron. Okay, and then this will then connect to the motor neuron, the one on the top. Okay, it will connect at this point, or dendrite point. Sorry. Right? Is this clear? Does it make sense how they will be connected?
Miss, I didn't understand the sensory neuron.
Okay. See, it's simple. Just the position of cell body has changed. Over there it was at the end, right? And over here it's in the middle. Right? Impulses are
So,
being transferred towards the cell body and to the axon. And from the axon, it will form a junction with relay neuron. Relay neuron will then form a junction with motor neuron.
so the electrical impulses travel one way?
Yes, they travel one way. Yes. They
Okay,
cannot
so
travel backwards.
when you say that dendrites, they move towards the cell body, that means if there's a receptor cell, so the dendrites will be attached to the receptor cell.
Yes. You see, at this point, let's say this is your dendrite. So let's say, this receptor is attached at this point. For example, okay, this is a receptor. It will then take it towards the cell body. And then from there, from the axon, it will take it away from the cell body, and then it will join it with the effect. Now over here, some, since this is a motor neuron, over here some muscle will be made. Okay, there will be some muscle here. Okay, and that will be the effector. Is this clear? Obviously,
Yes,
there will be no
miss.
receptor here. There will be sensory. There will be relay neuron here. But I said this is connecting with the relay neuron. Dendrites of some relay neuron. Okay, and then those are connected with sensory, and then those are connected from receptor. And at the end of motor neuron, you will have muscles or glands. Okay, so this junction that is between one neuron and the other neuron, that is called a synapse. Okay, this is your relay neuron. That is a sensory neuron. Okay, this is a relay. Relay is also called connector neuron, interneuron, multipolar neuron. Okay, but main term that is used is called your relay neuron. Alright, is this clear?
Yes, miss.
Or is the junction point clear?
Miss, what is synapse?
Synapse is the junction between two neurons.
Clear.
Alright, anyone else? Any questions? Yes. Ayla, Ahmed, Umar, all clear?
Yes, miss.
Umar, clear? Okay. This is what your synapse is, what? Junction between two neurons. Now let's look at synapse in detail. Okay.
Miss, can I ask something before we
Yeah,
continue?
sure.
Yeah, okay, so at the starting of the diagram where you wrote receptor, no, for the
Here,
sensory
yes.
neuron. Yeah, for this one, the receptor neuron, this is where the receptor cells are connected, right?
Oh, yes. Receptors will be connected to the sensory neuron because receptors are receiving the stimulus and then they'll be transferring it to the sensory neuron.
Okay, so where are the dendrites?
See, receptors are attached with the dendrites, right? Yeah, I'll show you a real diagram. 1 second. How else do they how else do you think they're connected? 1 second. Receptors with sensory neuron. We show you a diagram which has all the neurons together, so it will be easier. Let me see one. One second. Okay, this is no, forget it. Yeah, okay, fine. See, sensory neuron has dendrites and axon both, right? So now see, look at this. These are different types of receptors that are shown. Okay, it's not mentioned. I don't know what type of receptor it is. Ignore this. Look at the somatosensory receptor. Okay, these are receptors. This is a receptor. Okay, these are receptor cells. Okay, they are joined with the dendrites of your sensory neuron. Okay, dendrites and neurons are not separate things. Dendrite and axon are part of your neuron. All neurons contain dendrite and axon. So these are joined with the dendrites. Like I told you, they carry impulses towards the cell body. So can you see the impulses will be traveling towards the cell body? And then the end of it is axon. So you know that axons carried away from the cell body. Alright, so your receptors are connected with the dendrites of your sensory neuron. See, what did I write here in motor neuron? That they dendrites receive pick up electrical signals from other neurons nearby and their nerve impulses. Okay, so obviously other neurons. Why? Because motor neuron will be attached to a sensory neuron, right? That's why I said other neurons. In this case, when your sensory neuron is there, receptors will all obviously be attached to the dendrites of your sensory neuron. They will then take it towards the cell body, and from the cell body, your axons will take it away from the cell body to your next neuron, that is your relay neuron. Clear? Any questions?
So this blue thing that you drew is the relay neuron.
No, blue thing is the gap between the two neurons. The relay neuron is this neuron. See again, dendrites. I'm joining it with the dendrites. The blue thing that I drew was to show a gap between two neurons. Okay, it's not that much obviously, but I've just shown it to make it visible that there is a gap between two neurons. Right. Always remember your axon will bind to dendrites if it's neuron to neuron. Okay, remember for sensory neuron, receptors are binding to your dendrites, and then the axon of your sensory neuron will bind to the dendrite of your relay neuron. Okay. Then again,
Yes.
dendrite of your relay neuron will bind to the dendrite of your motor neuron, and axon of your motor neuron will bind to muscle or gland. Okay, I'm repeating one more time. You have receptors that will receive stimulus. They will bind to the dendrites of your sensory neuron. They will carry the impulses away from towards the cell body, and then after that, the axons of your sensory neuron will bind to the dendrites of your relay neuron. Okay. Then the dendrites of relay neuron will bind to dendrites of your motor neuron. Okay, no axons in relay neuron. So they will bind to dendrites of your motor neuron. They will take the impulses towards cell body, and then from away the cell body, axons will carry the impulses, and axon of your motor neuron will bind to an effector, that is your muscle or glands. Is this clear?
Yes.
Note this down in your notes as well. Okay, very important. Okay, first write it down, and then I will talk about synapse. Everyone else, is this clear? Sad
Yes, Miss.
and
The relay neuron transfers the signal from axon to the dendrite of the motor neuron.
relay neuron is both dendrites. Dendrites, it's getting impulse from axon of sensory neuron to dendrite of relay, and dendrite of relay to relay from dendrite of motor. It's dendrite to dendrite in relay neuron. It's just transferring the impulse, right? Okay, Sat?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
rest of you, yes. Ibrahim, you joined late. Is this clear? Why are you late, firstly?
Yes, it's clear.
And why were you late? Why are you late? Sorry.
I had a connections problem.
Alright, no issues. And Umar, where were you yesterday? I asked you. Alright, I hope everyone's clear. Please start noting down and write this what I just told you about your nerve impulses transferring. This is very important. Okay, did you watch the recording? We finished off in chapter 11. If you haven't, please watch it, alright? Okay, please note this down quickly. Oh, yeah, I couldn't hear you, so I think there's some issue with your mic. Alright. Okay, good. Right, is everyone done? Can I scroll down?
Yes.
All right. Yes, Zoya.
Miss, does the relay neuron have a cell body?
Cell body is only this part, this. It does not have axons. This. A nucleus, cell membrane, some dendrites with no axon.
So it just
That's
has
why dendrite to
dendrites to
dendrite
connect.
connection. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Here. Yes. All right, I'll wait another minute and then move on. Okay, yes. Here, Umar. It's sensory and relay both. Okay. Alright, is everyone done?
I'm
Okay.
done.
So, okay, Ibrahim and Ahmed. Okay, great. Alright, let's move on. Let's talk about your synapse. Okay, now I told you guys that synapse is junction between two neurons. You can also call it a gap between two neurons. It is a junction between two neurons. Sorry. 1 second, let me just copy the diagram. Synapse. Okay, let me show you how it is. This one, yes. Yeah, okay. Copy. All right, here, let me post this, share the screen back. Okay, see, this is, like I told you, it is a junction between two neurons. Okay, can you see? So this is your sensory neuron and your relay neuron. The junction between these two neurons is your synapse. And the space between it, like this gap, okay, that I've colored with black, the black lines. Like the space between these two neurons is a synaptic cleft. Synapse is the junction between two neurons, and the space between them is called your synaptic cleft. Is this clear? Now, if I, enlarge your synapse, it looks like this. Just put it to the side. Okay, see, this is your, let's say, this part I have enlarged this, and this. Okay. The end of your sensory neuron and the beginning of your relay neuron. Okay, now look at this. Nerve impulse is coming from this direction. All right. There are vesicles present at the end, okay, that contain chemicals. Now, see, before explaining this, now you guys tell me that we talked about it, that your impulses are transferred in electrical impulses, right? It's electrical in form, right? So, how do you think they're gonna move from one neuron to the other neuron? Do you think the electrical signals are gonna jump from this one neuron to another neuron over the gap, or is this gonna be another way? Yes. How do you think the impulse is going to transfer from here to here? Yes. Whatever you know, whatever you think. Yes, one by one. They're going to jump. Okay, Umar says they're going to jump. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Yes, Zoya, what do you say?
They're going to be transferred by some sort of protein transmitters.
Some form of protein
Transmitters.
transmitters. Okay. And do you have any, like, can you elaborate on what type of transmitters?
No.
Okay, no problem. Yes, Zoya. You're very close, Sad. Good. Yes, Zoya. What do you say?
The electrical signals will
Hmm.
it will pass. It will not like it cannot pass because it has electrical signals. But
So you are saying it will stop. It will not move from this end to this end.
yeah,
Okay, right. All right. Ayla, yes. What do you say? Quickly. Whatever you think. I'm not saying right or wrong. Whatever you think.
It will be transmitted between
Hmm.
by diffusion from
Electric.
the.
Yeah, I'm saying electrical signals are transmitted. So you're saying they transmit from by diffusion from this end to this end.
Yes,
Electrical. Okay, fine.
they bind.
All right. All right. And yes, Ahmed. I think you're gonna type it out. Achha, you don't know. All right. I don't know. Ibrahim. Can I at least try something? Ibrahim, in the meanwhile, you answer.
Yes.
How do you think they're gonna transfer? Like in the form of electricity, right? Electrical impulses, nerve impulses. How do you think they're gonna transfer? Are they gonna jump, or what's gonna happen?
Between a synapse,
Yeah, between a synapse, across from one neuron to another neuron. How are they jump? How will they
they
move? Will they
move
jump?
like by
Hmm.
binding to receptor proteins.
Electrical impulses will bind to receptor proteins. Yes, that's what you're saying. The nerve impulses
Yeah.
that are in electrical form, they're gonna bind to receptor proteins, right? All right. Ahmed, anything you wanna add, or you still don't know? You have no idea. All right. Neurotransmitters are going to go through the synapse and bind with receptor proteins and never be transmitted. Neurotransmitters. And where do these neurotransmitters come from? Nerve will be transferred, or okay, vesicles. And how will they, like, come out? Like, what will happen that they will, remove, like, come out of the vesicles? It just come out of nowhere anytime, or is it any particular time? Vesicles move closer to the membrane. No, I'm saying, like, why will the neurotransmitters come out of the vesicles? Like, what will happen? Like, they just come out like just like that without any reason, anytime? And not nerve. You'll say nerve impulses will be transmitted. Okay. Yes. When there's a stimulus. Okay. Very good. Excellent. Right. So I'll come to your answers one by one. Firstly, Umar said they're gonna jump. Umar, electrical impulses cannot jump. Okay. They travel in a continuous stream. Okay. And if you refer to the point when I said that in the motor neuron electrical impulses will jump, that is across one, that is in the same neuron. I'm talking about jumping across a synaptic cleft. Okay. So electrical impulses cannot jump. All right. Then Zoya, you said that they will not transfer, right? Then how do you think impulses are transferred from one neuron to another neuron? Okay, they have to transfer some way of the or the other. Electrical impulses cannot be transferred. That is correct. If you are making it in, if you answered with reference to that electrical impulses cannot be transferred, that is correct. But they need to be transferred in some form or the other, right? Saad, you said there are some types of transmitters. Okay, so Ahmed elaborated that there are neurotransmitters in your vesicles. Okay, and that will basically bind to receptor proteins. Okay, Ibrahim also said that, but Ibrahim, you said that I think you and Ayla both said that electrical impulses are going to bind to receptor proteins. Electrical impulses cannot bind to receptor proteins, right? Because the electricity does not have any complementary shape, right? It's just a flow of electrons. You guys, I think all of you must take, I think all of you have physics, and you guys know that flow of electrons is called electricity, right? But do you think electrons can go and bind somewhere? No, right? So yes, this is what happens. So when your nerve impulse reaches your end of your, let's say, axon, okay, this is your axonal end. Okay, there are vesicles that contain neurotransmitters. Okay, so they're specific that are called neurotransmitters. They're neurotransmitters. Why? Because they're working on nerve impulses. All right. So neurotransmitters are stimulated because of this nerve impulse. Because of this stimulation, they are gonna go and bind to the surface of your this what was I saying, axonal end. Okay, so this is basically called, see, this is your synapse. The membrane before your synapse is called presynaptic membrane, or it's also called your presynaptic neuron. Okay, note the axonal end or dendritic end. Right now we're working on synapse. So whatever is like before the synapse, the membrane or the neuron that is there, it's called pre, because pre means before. It's called presynaptic neuron. And the membrane that is coming, or the neuron that is coming after the synapse, is called a postsynaptic neuron. Okay, so your vesicles will come, they will, because of the stimulation from the nerve impulse, they will come and bind with the surface of your presynaptic neuron. Once they bind, they will release the neurotransmitters into the synaptic cleft, which will be of complementary shape, that will come and bind with the receptor proteins that are present on the postsynaptic neuron, right? So over here, your nerve impulse, electrical impulse converted into chemical. This chemical attached to the next next neuron. Okay, and then again it will be converted from chemical into electrical, and then be transmitted across this neuron to the next neuron and to the effector, so on and so forth. In every single, when you are jumping from one neuron to other neuron, okay, you cannot just jump directly in the form of electrical impulses. You need to convert those electrical to chemical, and that chemical will be converted back to electrical. This is how your impulses are transmitted across from one neuron to another neuron. Questions?
Miss,
Sorry, Saad, you got cut off. What were you saying? What is?
what is a vesicle?
Vesicle is basically, it's a sac-like structure that contains neurotransmitters. Okay, it's any sac-like structure. Now, in this case, it contains a neurotransmitter. It can also contain, some hydrolytic enzymes. If you study in AS inshallah about lysosomes, an organelle in the cell that contains hydrolytic enzymes. Okay, it destroys the any pathogen, any toxic substance, or any virus, bacteria, whatsoever. It's just like a sac-like structure that contains something. In this case, it contains neurotransmitter. Okay, sir?
Clear.
Yes. Anyone else? Any questions? Nerve impulse. Okay. See, nerve impulse, when it's coming towards your presynaptic neuron, and it has to be transferred to the postsynaptic neuron. Like for example, one neuron A to neuron B. Okay. So that nerve impulse will come to the end of neuron A. I've just labeled them. It will stimulate the vesicles that contain neurotransmitters. They will go and bind to the edge of the membrane of your presynaptic neuron. It will then release the neurotransmitter that they contain into the synaptic cleft, that is the gap. Okay. Since those are of complementary shape to that of your receptor protein that is present on your surface of the postsynaptic neuron, they will go and bind with them. So your electrical impulse just got converted into chemical impulse. Alright, we don't call it chemical impulse, but we just call it that it's converted from electrical. The message was being transferred in electrical form. Now it's being transferred in the chemical form. And then again, when it needs to transfer to the neuron, those neurotransmitters will deliver the impulse, and then again it will convert into electrical form, and then move on to the neuron, and then so on and so forth. This process continues. Is this clear? Yes. Okay, Umar said no
Yes.
questions. Zoya, Ibrahim, Aira, Ahmed. Any questions? Anyone?
Miss, I've written it down. Can I read it out to you and you tell me if it's right or wrong?
Okay, sure. I'll add the points as well. Okay, fine, but go ahead.
Oh, okay, you'll write the points and I'll just check them down.
Yeah, okay, and then you can first check, and then if you have any additional point or anything you don't understand, you can ask me after I'm done writing this one, all right? So these are the points. Let's see. So firstly, your nerve impulse causes the vesicles to move to the cell membrane of the presynaptic neuron. Okay, then they fuse with the membrane, empty their content, that is your chemical neurotransmitter, into the synaptic cleft. Neurotransmitters then quickly diffuse across the synaptic cleft. Yes, someone also included the point of diffusion. I forgot who said that electrical impulse will diffuse. Actually, electrical impulses do not diffuse. These neurotransmitters diffuse. Okay. Then these molecules of neurotransmitter will attach to receptor protein present on the cell membrane of postsynaptic neuron. And why does this happen? Because the shape of neurotransmitter is complementary to the shape of receptor protein. This complementary will never leave you. You have enzyme substrate, that is complementary. You have this neurotransmitter and receptor protein, that is complementary. You will find antibody antigen, that will also be complementary. Okay, and then there are tons of other more complementary that is not included in your course as of now. Okay, it's beyond your scope, but this complementary will never leave you. Okay, your body works on complementary. Everything needs to be complementary. Even your organs, the at times, when transplants are done, right, your body rejects the organs. Why? Because it says that these antigens are not mine. It starts to attack the organ that is transplanted, obviously. Okay, because it's some foreign body. Okay, again, so complementary is the basic principle of biology. Okay, your body works on complementary principle. And then this binding of neurotransmitter with the receptor triggers an electrical impulse in the postsynaptic neuron, and then it goes on and on. Alright, so this is what happens in your synapse. Any questions? Yes. Yes, Zoya, is that matching, or do you have any extra points or anything which is not matching? I mean, obviously wording will be different, but is the main concept same of what you have written?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, good. Yes, rest of you, any questions?
No question.
Miss, one more thing. What is this receptor protein?
Receptor protein is that is placed on your see, receptors are used for recognition, right? You need to know that what type of substance will come and bind with it. Right? You cannot just have any type of receptor, any type of molecule coming and binding. Okay. These have to be complementary shape of that of the neurotransmitter that is being released. Because obviously the body, right? So receptors are obviously complementary to the neurotransmitter. But sometimes, when drugs are used, so they at times, are of complementary shape of that of receptors. So they block the natural neurotransmitter and they themselves come and bind to these. That's why you have, effects of drugs. Okay, is this clear?
Okay. Yes.
Now, last thing that I want to add is that what happens to neurotransmitters after they have, done their job. So neurotransmitters after transmitting the impulse, what happens to neurotransmitters? After impulse is transmitted, neurotransmitters detach from the receptors and there are two things that can happen to them. One, they are reuptaken by the vesicles. Okay, they go back. Okay, again, mechanism is not important. We just know that they are reuptaken by the vesicles. Just go back, okay, because they have to come again and again. Okay, they're not wasted. Just like enzyme used over and over again. Second, they are destroyed by some enzymes. Okay, whatever more definitive opinion is of being reuptaken, because if they were destroyed, right, so then they would finish one day, right? So, but this is also written in some books that they're destroyed by enzymes. But a more definitive point is that they are reuptaken, right? Because they are released over and over again, right? It's not like one impulse passed in one year, 5 year, 10 year, right? They have to constantly pass their impulses, right? So they need to be reuptaken by the vesicles, otherwise they're gonna finish. So this opinion is not that definitive, but yes, some books do mention this. But this is the most definitive one. Okay, they are reuptaken by the vesicles. Clear? Right, and yes, these neurotransmitters are on one side, so that impulses only can transfer in one direction. One thing, right? Because I think you asked me that does the impulse only travel in one direction? Yes, it does travel in one direction because neurotransmitters are only present on one side, only in the presynaptic membrane neuron, not in the postsynaptic one. Otherwise, there'll be bidirectional flow of impulses. Okay, so these act like valves that prevent one directional flow of blood. These ensure one directional flow of your impulses. Right? Yes, go ahead now.
Okay, so basically after the the neurotransmitter attaches with the receptor things in the post that one. So doesn't the neurotransmitter convert itself to the electrical signals, or does it just transmit, like transfer its energy to?
Yeah, see, it does not connect, it does not convert into electrical impulses. It has the function of transmitting the electrical impulse. Okay, it just converts it, like you can say, it just changes it forms. Okay, electrical and then changes into chemical and then back to electrical again. Okay, because imagine if it starts to convert, then obviously you're gonna all the neurotransmitters are gonna finish, right? If all of them are converted, they'll be finished, right? You can just say they change forms, okay, or they can transmit the energy. All right.
I didn't understand the part where it's written they are retaken by the vesicles if they are already being passed to the other neurons. How are they retaken back?
See, they're not going inside the neuron, okay? They're just attaching to the surface, binding to the receptors on the surface. After the impulse has been transferred, their work is done, and then they go back to synaptic cleft, and then they're reuptaken.
So they just act like messengers. You can say they take.
Yeah,
the-
you can say that, yes.
Oh, okay.
They don't go inside the neuron, all right? Otherwise, how will they come out?
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Anyone else, any questions? Yes, all clear?
Clear.
Ibrahim, Ahmad, Ayla, Umar. Okay, Umar said no questions. All right. Is everyone clear? All right, please note this down then. Okay, that's great. Note this down, please. All right, are you guys done?
And then
All right. So I hope there are no further questions. I'll keep it till here for today. Tomorrow, inshallah, we're gonna start from the eye. Right, we're gonna talk about it in detail. Fourth diagram. Synapse, Umar. This. Okay. Right. So we're gonna continue from the eye tomorrow, inshallah. See you then tomorrow.